Okay. Welcome everyone to the Town of Manlius a virtual board meeting, November 4th. Another Zoom as we move forward. Before we begin, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Before we get started with the agenda, and Rob had mentioned this at our last meeting that one of our former employees, Barbara Davison, passed away on October 27th, at age 83, home after a brief illness. And very quickly here, she is survived by her husband, William Davison, daughters Linda Robinson, Terry of Lafayette, and numerous grandchildren. Barbara was with the town of Manlius for over 27 years. During that time, she was secretary to then town supervisor Dick Lowenberg. She also, from what I talked to other former board members, took on somewhat of a town administrative role and very involved with the budget. She resigned from the secretary to Dick back in 1999, and then she was the secretary to the planning board up until 2004. So I would just like to take a moment of silence to remember Barbara, if we could, please. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. So let's begin with our introductions. I'll start off. Ed Theobald, Town of Manlius Supervisor.
Hi, Sarah Bollinger, Town Councilor.
John Deere, Town Councilor.
Elaine Denton, Town Councilor.
Karen Green, Deputy Supervisor.
Caitlin Creasall, Town Councilor.
Heather Waters, Town Councilor.
All right, welcome all, and let's introduce the other town officials that are with us this evening. Randy Capriati, our Director of Code Enforcement Officer. We have Chief Mike Kroll, Highway Superintendent Rob Cushing. Tonight we have Jamie Sufkin, our town attorney, and Tim Ferteski's also in the house, so to speak, as on a needed basis. He's had a couple of other town conflicts, but he will be available if necessary. Also, Doug Miller, our town engineer, and Ann Oot, town manager, and of course, last but not least, our town clerk, Allison Weber. Thank you, everyone. With that, let's move on. We're going to table the minutes of October 28th, 2020. So we'll move on to the approval of abstract number 21.
Hi, Mr. Supervisor. I'd make a motion to approve abstract number 21 in the amount of $241,867.20.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed and carried. All right. We will be, Sarah, I think you sent out a notice that we're going to continue the commercial zone classification changes for now.
Yes, please, Mr. Supervisor. I'd like to continue the public hearing and table the discussion to December 2nd.
Do we need a motion for that, Jamie?
This is Heather. Hi there. I would like to make a motion to move our public hearing date to December 2nd for the commercial zoning.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Very good. The next item, of course, is the preliminary town budget, which we presented at our last board meeting, and which was, as we had, has been the norm. We kept it open for one more meeting. Instead of 2 weeks, it was 1 week. So that's sort of nice. Allison, do you know if we've received any comments, or is anyone currently on either Facebook, or I don't see anyone in the chat room that might have had other questions or comments about the.
Nope, we have not received anything at town hall, and it's just Debbie in the room tonight.
Okay. All right. With that, I'd like to have someone make a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
I'll second, Sarah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Again, as just as a reminder, Sarah can jump in too. This is still a work in progress before we get to the final budget, and the finance committee is really working hard to get these rates much more attainable. I think that what we want, and as close as possible to below the tax cap. So we're
Mr. Supervisor, we do have, I think, a comment about the tax cap that Councilor Kriesel wants to make.
Sure. Yep. Go ahead. Caitlin.
So is this my my little presentation, Sarah?
I forgot, Caitlin. Thank you very much.
Okay. I was waiting for you. I would have jumped in. I sometimes am a little bit shy and quiet, but I overcome it when needed to. But we did discuss during our finance committee meeting, and I mentioned it in our last board meeting, that when we collect taxes, that a lot of people, that's escrowed. You don't even really see where it goes. You're not even interacting with Lori Peschel at town hall collecting your taxes. So it's pretty esoteric how all of this really works. And we all hear it all the time. And maybe we even feel the burden ourselves sometimes that the taxes are high in Manlius. And so when I've had over the last year, people come to me and say, well, I have a pothole in my road outside my house and I pay so much in taxes. Why do I have a hole? And I'm like, well, you don't pay as much as you think to the town. And so I worked with Sarah and Elaine, and Anne was very helpful in providing the data. And Elaine, thank you for creating this slide. And I'm gonna just share my screen just to go over this with a little bit more detail, which I thought would be helpful. Can you all see my slides here?
Yep.
It's good.
So in going through the finance committee and working on the budget, it's becoming apparent to us that we very likely will go over the tax cap. And so we've discussed at length what that means for the constituents, for the taxpayers in the town of Manlius. And we're still working on reducing that as much as we can, so that if we do go above the tax cap, it's to the least amount possible. So what we're comparing here are two things. One, your tax bill, should we bring everything into parity and not go above the tax cap? And then comparing that to the very real scenario that we're facing, where we very well might need to go above the tax cap. So you'll see in the first slide, this is what your tax bill would look like. And this is totaling both your school tax bill that you receive every year, as well as the tax bill that you come into the town hall and pay. This shows what that tax bill would look like, how it's broken out if we did in fact go over the tax cap. And then it's comparing that to the percentages you would pay in the breakdown of your taxes in Manlius, should we cut expenses, cut spending, and stay at the tax cap. And what you can see is that in demonstrating what the bill looks like, even going over the tax cap, school taxes are still 64% of what you pay in a year in Manlius. Your town taxes, if we were in fact to go above the tax cap and it would only be a couple $100,000 that we would do that in total, that it's still just a marginal increase from 11.8% in town taxes of your tax bill to 12.2%. So it would be very, very marginal what an individual would see in the increase in taxes and what you're paying to the town we collect county taxes, which is the second most that you pay after your school taxes, then the town, then special districts, and then the library taxes. And the special districts are like the water and what are some of the other special districts, Sarah?
Fire prevention.
And so when we receive all that information from all the different special districts and collates all of that, we don't set that amount. We don't set the library taxes. We don't set the county, and we certainly don't set the school. So the amount that we have control over it has really stayed below the tax cap. But it's still, what this is demonstrating, what I'm hoping to be able to express with this is that that the taxes you pay to the town itself that we keep and then use to fund the government here is marginal. Sarah, would you like to add anything to this?
No, I think that was very good. Thank you.
Yeah, that looks good, Caitlin. I think you did an excellent job in putting that together and making it as clear as we possibly can. Really, nice job.
Thank you. And thank you again, Elaine, for making this. So I think that we should probably talk a little bit more about our thoughts on going above the tax cap and giving some more details on that, which I'm happy to do, Ed, or you can, and then I'll jump in.
Well, the only thing I would say, of course, is that we'll meet again as a finance committee. I know we've sort of in piecemeal every time that we see each other and talk to each other between those times. And I know I've mentioned to Sarah, Ann, and I've talked about it. We've shared it with you, Caitlin, as far as some of the areas where I think we can still improve the tax rate and get, as you mentioned, Caitlin, getting as close as possible to getting near the tax cap. It would be great if we can get below it. Again, as we've stated, it's the special districts that we really have no control over. So our main goal is to get the town portion of the budget under the tax cap or as close as possible. And this has been done in the past. We have experienced this, where there was a new
Many years in the past it's been done. We've had great success with that, actually.
Yeah. And it's usually when there's
It takes work, but
that comes on board,
it's important, right?
I did see that our county executive, Ryan McMahon, has released details of his proposed budget, and that they're cutting tens of millions of dollars in spending, and they've been faced with such a huge shortfall due to the coronavirus and sales taxes, but that they're not increasing the tax rate at all, and they're not dipping into their fund balance. And so this is a question that we've been discussing as well, because all municipalities have like a savings account. They keep money in the bank if they need it in the case of an emergency, just like a family or an individual might do. And so you don't want to have to dip into that unless you need to. And so then you have your fund balance, you have the taxes that you might go and collect from people, and then you have your expenses. And so we're facing that now ourselves. Are we going to pull from the fund balance, which we're doing a little bit? Are we going to tax people more than we might otherwise would have? It looks like that might very well be the case. And then we're focusing on cutting spending everywhere that we can, but we don't want our community to lose services. So like, that's the question. Do you pull more from the fund balance? Do you tax more, or do you cut more? And we've cut a lot, and we're going to continue working on figuring out where we can really do that, but not to the extent that we've heavily reduced services. We don't want to hurt the police department by taking away too much of their budget. We certainly don't want to hinder our ability to plow roads and pave them, because that's what people notice. So, and there's been more expenses with the fire departments and with Okra, different things we didn't see coming and lost revenue. So we're still working on all those pieces, but it was interesting to see what the county executive came up with when he released that information today.
And the only thing I'd like to add to that, which you did bring up at the last, we talk about fund balance as a whole, but each of our funds, whether it's the A, A, B, DA, and DB, they each have their own fund balance
Right.
that we can work with on an individual basis. So those percentages for the budget are what we're going to be targeting, I think, as we meet going forward with this as a finance committee.
So Ed, what is our timeline for the budget? Just so that everyone kind of knows the direction that we're heading. We'll meet again as the finance committee. What's the next step that the town board will see?
Well, first I'll set something up for next week for the four of us to get together, and then I yield to Allison with those special dates.
Sure, no problem. So the next board meeting that we're having is on November 18th, and that is the final day to adopt the budget. Any changes that you make to the preliminary budget that was adopted at the previous meeting and the budget that is going to be passed on November 18th, you would do by motion. So you can list all those changes out and then make a motion to do those. And then that would become the final budget. But the last day to adopt is November 18th.
So I would strongly encourage all of our, like there's 32,000 people in Manlius. We really want to hear from you. I know that some of this stuff's in the weeds, and I know I might not even really be talking to anyone directly right now since it looks like our one attendee in the Zoom is Debbie. But if you are watching this and you have any questions at all, I'd be happy to talk to you. We really want people to be engaged and to understand this process because it's really the most important part. This is where your money is going. So if you don't agree with it, or if you have questions and you want to better understand it, or if you have an idea of what we might do differently, this is your chance because the budget will be adopted at the next meeting. So please reach out to us, reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to anyone.
Very good. And as I mentioned, I'll organize a meeting for us for next week at some point. We'll schedule for, and we'll probably meet more than once, I imagine.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, probably.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else from the board on that, or are we good to move on? We're good? Okay. So again, thank you, Caitlin and Sarah and Ann, of course, with all the work that you've put into this. And Elaine, too, in the background there, doing all the drafts and everything that I like so much. So we'll move on to the item 7, which is the setting a date for the noise control, a public hearing for the noise control. Jamie, do you want to just start us off with that? And I know John and Tim have been working on that too, but if you could just get the ball rolling and then we could.
I'll just be real brief and I'll hand it over to John, but the gist of this is that we never had a decibel standard out there. And it was more of a reasonableness man standard or woman, as the case would be. And so this does actually, I guess everyone did some research and picked a decibel. So John, I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so I wanted to get this out in front of people sooner rather than later, because after all the research that a bunch of us did around noise ordinances and how they're enforced and all these different things, what I found at least is we were simply missing that point that makes it incredibly clear as to what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. And what we were missing was something that is measurable. Most of the noise ordinance that we had included a lot of the provisions that you would expect to see in a good noise ordinance. And so this is a pretty simple change, but we're hoping that by kind of clarifying the law as it stands, it'll make it easier to enforce, easy to understand. There doesn't have to be a conversation about whether or not a noise is inappropriate. It's you measure it. And, obviously that's not perfect, but it gets us a lot closer to something that I think will really help folks who have, issues around noise issues. So.
Very good, John. And I think I know a few of you have also replied to the resolution here with some other questions, ideas, which again, we can continue to do that before our next meeting and be prepared to try to answer some of those as well. Okay.
Do we know if we have a public hearing already for?
Yeah, we need to set that up for, I think the 18th, is it? Allison, is that right? So we need a motion to set that public hearing.
Yeah, John, can I ask a question? I've never measured a decibel before. I'm familiar with them, of course, but if I were driving down the road and I was pulled over because my radio was playing too loud, and someone said, well, your decibels are too high, how do you know what they are? Is there how do you measure?
So there's decibel measuring devices. There's even apps on your phone that if people are saying, hey, I think I've got there's noise that's going on, they can measure it to get an idea. Obviously, we need something that's calibrated to actually measure that. But the other thing too is, as far as how to not get around like just nuisance stuff, the noise has to be going on for 15 minutes in order for it to be measurable. Really, like the noise has to be fairly consistent. So that's how we get around the truck brakes and your dog gets out of the house and starts barking like crazy for a few minutes. It's a reasonable zone where this is strictly for constant and unnecessary noises that are negatively impacting people's quality of life. It's not we're not going to call we're not expecting people to use this noise ordinance to go after somebody for making a little bit of noise for a little while. And there's different decibel levels throughout the day. So at night it's higher, but during the day it's a number that's pretty reasonable.
So Karen, it's not your radio in your car, it's the rock band in your garage that might be the problem.
Yeah, Karen, no more.
A long time at stoplights. So, but my other question is, I know we've had in the past, and Rob, you've been helping out on this too, with the construction trucks on the roads. And we've had complaints over the years where residents will hear these air brakes consistently with the traffic.
Yeah, Karen,
I would certainly prefer the driver to use the air brakes than not. So,
I know that's been fought, Karen, a little bit. And the reason why I say that, obviously those are on the equipment for reasons. It becomes a safety issue. And there's certain areas where they've kind of outlawed them in certain communities. Obviously with a hill or a busy intersection or something like that.
They're not outlawed in Manlius.
No. And I tell you, they've changed the Jake brake systems on the new trucks because of the emissions that they've changed. They're not quite as loud as the decibels used to be on the older trucks. So that's some of the things that have changed. Where we run into some of the questions on that is we're in a neighborhood at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 in the morning with a mill machine. Now, we certainly don't do that every year in every subdivision either. But that's where the concerns come in, because you've got a loud piece of equipment that's grinding the road up. And it certainly does meet that threshold. But they've always kind of been an exempt for that period of time that the project was being undertaken. And then obviously it's something that's not, we're not going to do that every day. So that's why they made the municipal side kind of exempt of that.
And you notify them, Rob, anyway, ahead of time. So
that's correct. We notify the residents in the area when we're going to be doing work in the area for just that reason. And we've had other people that have allergies to the dust and to asphalt. So we've had a lot of different issues with those types of things over the years. So we've kind of gone out of our way to try and notify our residents to let them know when we're working in those areas.
Okay, very good.
And I don't have it right in front of me, but I'll absolutely take a look at that before our next meeting and make sure that we have provisions in there so that we're not holding construction teams accountable for this kind of stuff, because it's required. But the current law as it exists has a number of exemptions that make it so that it can't be used in that way.
Yep. Okay, very good. Anyone else?
I used my leaf blower today, and that was pretty loud. I thought I was disturbing my neighbors with that.
I think we need to make a motion to set the public hearing.
Yeah, I was going to agree. We have a leaf blower. It's the same thing. It's really loud and sustained. It can make you, and because people are home doing work more often, I think people are noticing those things more and more. I would like to make a motion to set a date for the public hearing for the new noise ordinance for was it our December meeting, our first December?
I think November, right? Allison?
November 18th at 6:35.
November 18th at 6:35, please.
And I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carried. Very good. Excellent. Yeah, that should be for good conversation. I actually had Mayor Brazil reach out to me. He was asking about maybe joining somehow, mirroring what we do, and maybe we should reach out to the other.
Yeah,
two.
actually, Supervisor, I was going to reach out to you tomorrow to talk about how we wanted to go about reaching out to the mayor. So it sounds like we're already on the right track.
Yeah. Well, they reached out to me. So, all right. Very good. All right. We'll move on now. All right. Rob, we're on to you already. Highway Superintendent, what do you have for us?
Just a couple of quick things, Ed. First of all, had a couple of residents reach out in the last week or so about some concerns up with the speed limit on Hale Road. My understanding is I've had a resident actually tell me she bought a new car, and she said that the GPS in her car says that road's 30 miles an hour. So I followed up with the state of New York, who does all of our speed limits, who sets the speed for our speed limits. And she actually has it posted at 55 miles an hour. So I'd like to request the board, and I kind of talked to Allison a little bit earlier, to put in a TE9 form and ask for a request for the state to review the speed on Hale Road and make a recommendation to what the speed should be. It's pretty tough to do 55. I tried it a couple times. It's pretty tough to do 55. But
I agree, Rob. It's narrow and it's curvy. I
Yeah.
just could never quite understand.
I don't think there's a ton of traffic on the road, but I do believe, it does get enough traffic to where, the residents are concerned at this point. So
Yeah.
again, I don't know if we need a motion, Allison, on that. I think we've done that typically in the past. Just try and file a TE9 to get a recommendation from the state on
Yeah,
speed.
we can make a motion if you'd like to do that. We've done that before.
Yeah.
All right, I would make a motion to request a TE9 from New York State for Hale Road.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
And the
Opposed?
last one,
Carried. Very good. Go ahead, Rob.
the last one that I've got is I've had a resident up, his name is Randy Andrews, up on 5440 Springview Drive, which is the Change in Season subdivision. And they're requesting at the intersection of Route 5 and Springview Drive. It's fairly dark there at night. It's just up where the golf, the ski resort is there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And they're requesting a street light at the intersection of Route 5 and Springview. I talked to Sarah briefly earlier. I know Tim was kind of put in on it. Maybe we can shed a little bit of light on it. But I did tell the resident to contact your office, Ed, with some sort of an email or something requesting the board to look into that. But I know we've done it in the past, and I don't know for sure. I guess my question would be is I'm not sure if there is an actual homeowners association or an active homeowners association in that Springview area, the Change in Season subdivision. But I believe that they can be added to a district. If in fact, I'm sure we have to get a quote from National Grid to install it. And then there's a yearly fee, I believe, for the light. And I don't think they're asking for any other lights. It was just that particular light, but maybe, we can get a little bit of light from Tim or whatever on that.
Yeah, so we need to look and see exactly who Tim had suggested that perhaps a user agreement, because it's a small situation rather than expanding the district. Also, just like you said, Rob, we need to figure out who's the user, right? Is it an active HOA, or is it neighbors, or what? So
yeah, I'm just not sure if there is an actual district there or a HOA or not.
Right.
There's also the my son goes to the dojang that's there for Taekwondo. So where the dentist's office is and where the Taekwondo dojang is. So that they're right. Anybody who's going to those two locations would, and for particularly in the winter time, the dojang is open, when it's dark, would use that too. So they're not officially part of the Changing Seasons subdivision.
Right.
But that's a factor in there. And as someone who drives over there, I would say it's kind of a tricky, it's a tricky turn right and a quick turn left. And so, I could understand, I can understand the question from the resident for sure.
So I guess, Jamie, we could just follow up, maybe between you, Tim, and myself and Sarah, we can kind of come up with something
Yes.
maybe by the 18th here, and make a determination how we go about that.
Yeah, Rob,
Other
I didn't receive an email from him yet, but now I understand what Sarah's email was all about.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Randy again tomorrow, and just tell him we brought it up tonight. And, I'll have him make sure that he reaches out and gets an email out to you, and I'll have him forward it to the board or whatever. So that way we're all on the same page. So other than that, Ed, I'm good this evening. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Next is on the number 9. Randy, do you have anything for us this evening, or?
Yeah, I got a few things. I was absent from last meeting.
Yep.
Just to start up as a follow-up from a couple meetings ago, has the town received any input from the public regarding the chickens?
I haven't received anything. I don't know if you have.
I did a little post of my little chickens to see if anyone had any kind of comments. The only ones I did get was, if it's good for ticks, then that's great. So I can send you anything else that I received, Randy.
Perfect.
Okay.
It was written up. There was a little blurb about it in the Eagle Bulletin. So it was, at least if you read that article, you would have seen that at the tail end. It was summarizing our whole meeting, and then at the end it talked about the chickens. So so the word got out, at least through the Eagle Bulletin, for those that read it. But I haven't heard anything. No one's emailed me or called me.
I don't think I got that far, but I heard the discussion. So, okay. Anything else, Randy?
Yeah, we've been working on some construction documents that I'm putting together now that's been recommended by the people in the stretch program, New York State, that a lot of information that architects do not put on submitted plans for, like, say, new residences, that we have to go back after them for all the information. Right now, I'm in the process of modifying them, and they're going to be on our website. So when someone downloads the application, they're going to have to download these documents and submit them with the permit. So all the information is there prior to us even taking a look at the plan reviews. It's going to save everybody a lot of time to review all these, and then the information that the code requires will be there. So we're working on those right now. We're compiling a list of all the contractors for an email. So I'll be able to send them a letter ahead of time, give them the documents to kind of review them. And I'm going to probably enact this January 1st. So they'll have plenty of time to review the forms. They're all familiar with them. Some do put them on the plan, some don't. But this is going to standardize it across the board for everybody. But they'll see it ahead of time. So that'll be a good thing on that.
That's a good idea. All right. Could help us.
A couple more things.
A quick question for you. A clarifying question. Would something like that be sort of an update that would be under codes on our website, sort of saying, so whatever letter you send to the folks, you'd also put on the website so that it was sort of under codes and it would be highlighted?
Oh yeah, it's going to be an asterisk, so it's going to be something new to them. So they'll be able to just download the forms if they want to, besides the permit. But it'll be like a notification ahead of time that it will be going into effect January 1st. So they'll see it a couple months ahead of time.
Thank you.
That. Myself, Dave, and Mike, along with the fire chief in Manlius, we're working with Manlius Academy. They've got some water issues up there. There's not enough water to supply to a fire engine if there's a fire on the complex. It's a private water source that comes off of Aqua. One comes from Verbeck, which isn't enough water to get up the hill. The other one comes off Sabre. So we're working with them, doing testing privately. Obviously, they're paying for it. to get them where they need to be to supply the complex properly and to supply water in case there's a fire up on the establishment up there. So we're working with them. We've had to pull plans out. We had to go back and get the old plans from the architects from the early 80s. They wound up still having them. So we've had one meeting today already with them. So things are going good up there. So I'll keep you posted where we are with that.
Randy, can you clarify what, which location you're talking about? Is it the Manlius Academy, you said?
Yeah, when you go up Sabre Lane
Yeah,
and you make a right into the complex with all the apartments where the old academy was,
yep,
all the way down to Verbeck, that
Got
whole
it.
section.
got it.
on it.
Where we often talk about with stormwater issues too. Okay, great.
Yep. And lastly, Dave Corbett, even though that he's been remote and we haven't been able to do a lot of inspections during COVID, he's managed to get in 180 initial fire inspections already this year. Not even saying the 50 or 80 re-inspections on some places. So Dave's been very active in the background. We haven't seen too much of him, but I get his updates. So he's pretty good numbers so far compared to what we were last year, based on the fact he couldn't get out there for 3-4 months. So he's doing a really good job. So good to
Great.
him
Yep,
on it.
excellent.
But other than that,
Thanks, Randy.
well,
Yep, very good. Yeah, Dave is, he's sort of, you don't see him much, but he gets a lot done. You know, it's great. So thank you, Randy. Excellent. Jamie, do you have anything for us this evening?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to Allison. No?
All set, thank you.
Very good. Chief, what do you have for us tonight?
Just a few things. I continue to work with the district attorney on the law enforcement reform as related to the Executive Order 203. I'm making good progress on that. And then lastly, we've sort of transitioned into the final phase on the remodel project at the building. Today, we moved most of our people into the trailer, which is good. But unfortunately, those of us that are still in the building have no heat. So I'll continue to keep you posted. But luckily the temperature's going up for the next week, so that should be helpful. But we're all kind of working off of space heaters right now.
Chief, how long do they anticipate that interruption?
I have no idea. They're struggling with getting gas, I guess, to these brand new units through National Grid, but we've heard very little from the group on when the project will be finalized.
Chief, on our last supervisors meeting, there was just wondering how we're doing with the Reform Act. And so maybe you and I can get together and just do some summary at some point so I can just keep the supervisors in the loop so they can share that with their boards. Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Great, thank you. Ann, do you have anything for us this evening? No. Okay, didn't even have to unmute yourself for that. Okay, and why don't we do what we did last meeting? We'll go around the room here. Let me see. We'll start with Heather. We'll start with you.
Sure. I made mention at our last meeting about the tree grant that we were awarded. And I will be sending out this notice to everyone tonight, but we have the trees, and the way this works is that once they're sort of available, there's this short window for when you're supposed to be planting them. I guess everyone can see as you're driving around, lots of trees being planted right now. This is the moment. So we're going to plant Friday morning 2 snow-capped Japanese lilacs and 2 Masashino Zelkovas right on the at the triangle right at the Village of Manlius's gateway there at Route 92, High Bridge, 257 Fayette Street. And thank you so much to Stephanie Goreshi and to Rob and to Chris Sherwood. And I'm not sure if anyone else was there with you, Rob, but they went and they staked the location so that that they would get we'd get the clearing from Dig Safely New York for that. And if we do and all's well, then Friday morning around 9, we will start live streaming the planting. And then Ed, if it still works for you, at 9:30, we will go ahead and also do at the same time take advantage of having the planting going on to do our annual Arbor Day proclamation and observance at
That'll work.
9:30 or so.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, of course. No, thank you very much for being available on short notice. And because we want this to be very safe and it's quite a small area, we're not making it open to the public. That's why we're live streaming. But we will on our Facebook page. But we will, but board members are welcome, and our Village of Manlius colleagues are, of course, very welcome to join us in a socially distanced manner. So please let me know to expect you. Sure. And thank you again to Rob and your team. Also, and you had some folks who went to the, as part of this grant, we had this sort of tree workshop that the town of DeWitt collaborated with us on, and our team members went, and there was a special kind of planting with Rob, can you remind me of what it's called with gravel? Did you hear about this?
Yeah, they had, there was two separate. They did a bare root planting and then the one with the bags. It's basically a bag. It's a neoprene bag or I guess we'll call it a biodegradable bag. It's a little bit different than the ball. It's kind of similar, but same type of planting.
Yeah, so this kind of, so these techniques and sort of understanding the nuances of how to deal with what you're given and also how to manage, that is something that we continue to support the professional development of everyone on. And it's just great. So we're very excited about this and grateful to the Village of Manlius again for taking over and adopting these trees, really, because they'll be maintaining them in the area the way that they did before the 3 ash trees that became diseased were maintained by the village. So yeah, that's all I have tonight.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you, Heather. And John, what do you have for us this evening?
So Allison distributed the social media policy we've been working on to everybody. So we'll see that on the next agenda. Really looking forward to getting that adopted, as I think it would just streamline a lot of the stuff we're doing. And just to tout some of the success of the move to the new Facebook page, we were able to make it so that when we have this ceremony or event on Friday, it'll be able to be live streamed straight to our Facebook page by Heather. So just excited that we've kind of moved that to the next step where it needs to be. And I think after we figure out the policy stuff, I think we'll be in a great position to hopefully look at further changes to our communication strategy in 21.
Well, that's great. That'll be our first time for that, for an Arbor Day thing. I like it. So excellent. All right, very good. Elaine, what do you have for us tonight?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Nothing tonight. Okay. And Caitlin, I believe you're up next.
Thank you. So tomorrow, Sustainable Manlius is meeting, and we're going to be continuing with the Climate Smart Communities Initiative. So stay tuned for more information on that as it progresses. Again, there's grant funding lying on the other side of this. So it would be really awesome if we could buy some electric vehicle charging station and some electric vehicles for Randy and his department to use. We talk about that in all of our meetings because we're just dreaming of some EVs we can plug in at the town hall. And as a part of that, the next meeting in November, I'll be presenting a resolution to do benchmarking in the town. So I'll circle that around. I didn't get that done in time to do today, but that's what we'll do. We'll use to document how much electricity we're using, and then that's kind of the benchmark that you use so that you know how much you've improved. How much electricity are you saving? You first have to know how much you're using. So I'll circulate that around, and we can discuss that more at the end of the month. I did have a question actually for Rob. I had some conversations related to the crossing light, I think it was, to connect the Green Lakes, the new parks at Green Lakes with the Do Good Park. Has that moved forward?
Are you talking about the Pearson Road, Kaylin?
Yes, I think.
Yeah,
That's
I believe there's signs, that we've actually put signs up on Pearson Road, or we've talked about getting those up. We still got to make the signs, I believe. But I
okay.
believe Ed and I met with Rob, and we're not going to do an actual crosswalk. We're going to do it for an area. I believe it's like 200 feet area because there's no design, actual trail there yet. And they feel that there's going to be maybe a couple of trails. So we're just kind of see how it went and just kind of covered that area with the crossing signs, along Pearson Road there, that section up by the golf course. Um, so at this point, we're just kind of putting together some signs and hopefully get them up there and get going on it.
Awesome. All
Yeah,
right.
that was with Rob Hiltbrand. And I think you and Rob went up there to just make sure that the distancing of the signs were appropriate and everything, Rob.
Yeah, I met with Rob up there, and again, they've kind of got that well, we'll call it a bus turn run because that's what they use it for. So it's kind of before that, and it goes down a little bit further beyond that, probably about 150 feet. So there's about a 200 feet, 300 feet section that we want to kind of make signed off, letting residents know or letting people know that there may be, crossing there, a pedestrian crossing.
All right, awesome. Thank you. It'll be really cool once that's done. And I know that the Green Lakes component, like they're still finishing up the trails that they're putting there, but once that's done, that'll be really neat. So we'll want to make sure we highlight that once Green Lakes is ready to do a dramatic unveiling. And then the last thing I'll mention, I met with Mayor Worrell for a few hours. We met for 3 hours. Half of it was just us nerding out on the history of the village of Manlius, which is actually really cool. If you ever want a history lesson on Manlius and you've got 3 hours to spare, go meet with Mayor Worrell because it was really, really, really fascinating. There used to be a train that would come through with Santa Claus on it every year, and it just sounded so cool, the way things used to be. But one of the conversations that I often have with the mayor is surrounding traffic in the village. And the SMTC, that's the Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council, they are starting a study in the new year. And I'll be serving on that committee at the mayor's request, along with a couple representatives of the village, the community, and the county, and the state with the DOT, because Route 92 that cuts through the village is a state road. And we're very hopeful, and we've already heard good things from the SMTC, that traffic mitigation in the village of Manlius is a very real thing that we might be able to do. But in the interim, there's a lot of complaints about speed and people running red lights. So thank you to the chief for answering all of my questions. It's going to take more than pulling people over to solve the traffic problem. It's going to take real urban planning and real transportation planning. So I'm excited to start that process. It's transportation, even though I never talk about it, is actually probably my greatest area of interest in urban planning, how people get from A to B. It's very, very fascinating to me. So I'm super excited for that process to begin. And that's everything for me.
Very good. Thank you, Caitlin. Sarah, what do you have for us this evening?
So thank you. The Salt Springs Water District project meets once a month. And this month we met with some representatives of possible funding organizations, particularly the Department of Health, the Department of Rural Development, the Regional Economic Development. And it was a positive meeting. It went actually longer than what we had planned. They seemed very engaged in the process and interested in what we were planning to do. And there was good conversation about who should be in the district or not in the district based on the resident survey, which is going around now. So if anybody listening to this happens to have received that survey, please turn it in because we're moving on it. So there will be a public information website launching next week through the rest of November because we couldn't do a big public meeting. So everybody will receive a letter. Everybody who might be impacted by the water district will receive a letter inviting them to go to this website and submit their questions, read the information, look at the drawings, and we'll have some interaction with people individually to respond to their questions, which we've already done to some extent. But this is something that I think this is the time November, December, January, when resident engagement is important. Once we have a district formed, then it kind of goes into the engineering world and the residents don't hear about it for another 2 years. So we just want to make sure people are paying attention, that if you do live on McClenton or Braylor or North Eco Village or Salt Springs or Gulf or Horseshoe, that you pay attention to what's going on with this, particularly during November with this special website invitation. But it hasn't gone out yet, so you'll get your letter in a couple of days. The website goes up next week, and I just wanted to make sure people were aware that we are deeply studying this to be sure we make the right judgment, that we don't rush to a decision about where the water district line should be, but that we consider the input of the residents. So, but it was positive. There is grant money available. We do believe we can bring the fees to within the guidelines. So that was good news.
And Assemblyman Sturpey was there as well, reaffirming that the 2 million that he had talked about is part of that funding. So that was helpful. But it's like anything, hope for it, and maybe it'll be there right there. I forget what Ken used in his acknowledgement there, but it may be there.
Well, I think what Ken was talking about was that if we don't go through the steps to be shovel ready, no one will give us the money. So we have to get to the point of shovel ready before we even ask. And so that's really, so residents say, well, why New York doesn't have any money right now anyway? No, it doesn't matter. We have to be ready. So when they do have money, we'll be one of the people in the queue.
Yep, very good. Excellent. All right. Is that it, Sarah?
Yeah, that's it for me.
All right. Karen, do you have anything for us, Steve?
I'm all set, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you.
Okay, very good. And with such a short week, I don't have anything either. So we do need go ahead, Heather. Oh,
There we go. I neglected to say something about our wonderful colleague, Caitlin Creasel. But I didn't know if anyone was going to mention this, and I didn't want to jump the gun here. But really, really want to acknowledge that and how proud and excited we are that she is one of Central New York's 40 under 40 stars of 2020. And this honor is being bestowed this week for the 2020 class by the Central New York Business Journal. And I know in the class we have a number of other town of Manlius residents, and so we should find a way to just double check the list and acknowledge them as well. But how cool that we have one of our very own counselors as a member. So Caitlin, congratulations, and just so thrilled, and this is just a well-deserved honor.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Heather. Now I'm crying in the board meeting again, which is like the third time I've done that. So thank you.
Thank you, Heather. I'm glad you made her cry, not me. So you said something. But I apologize. I know we were talking about it before the meeting started, and I didn't write anything down. So I appreciate your preparedness for that.
Oh, no, not at all. And I don't believe it was an oversight at all. I just think that it was just such a special thing that I just wanted to make sure that we didn't miss it.
Right. Right. And I don't have anything, as I said. So if we'd like to adjourn, we could make a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Very good. Thank you, everyone. Good meeting, and we'll see you in a couple.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.